I feel the same. When I had to go through job applications, it's the same way. Sometimes I was rejected and I'm like, why would I be rejected for this? Like I could literally do this. How are you, man?
I'm great. I see that, and I mentioned this before the recording, that you look really relaxed. Why don't you explain to the audience
Yeah, I know.
why?
Thanks. I'm on vacation and I still
Yeah, where are
thought it
you?
was, I can't miss, I can't miss a pod. We had to do this. So I'm in the football, Airbnb, sit on the bed. Kids are on their devices, like unwinding. So I took some time to do this. We're in Mexico City. We decided to come and explore the city over here. Oh, it's much more fascinating than I anticipated as a city.
Mm.
It's such a great city. Like there's
What
so
what's what's
much.
what's like the number one thing to hit?
To me, what I was surprised at is that the city is built in like neighborhoods, and each
Mm.
neighborhood is so different from everybody else. It's like when you go to Palenco, Palenco is like this high end, bougie, like Rodeo Drive type like stores. Is that what you get? Like Range
Mhm.
Rovers, Porsches, and like all the fancy cars. I'm in La Condesa, which La Condesa is, I would say it's like a very trendy area in New York. Like
Mm.
trendy restaurants, all the expats live here. It's sort of like up and
Are,
coming
is it like
neighborhood,
is
which
it like
is
the
really,
is it
really,
like the artisanal coffee shops and stuff?
you have a lot of that. Yeah. And it's mixed between like Roma Norte and La Condesa, which like they're like Roma Norte has a lot of these fancy coffee shops, and like Condesa has like good restaurants. And I'm like 20 minutes away from like the big castle, which overlooks the entire city. And like
That's
then you
awesome.
go to like El Centro, which is like the whole old Mexico City. So we've been having a blast so far, and we're heading back tomorrow. But so far, so good. I'm amazed. Like the food is fantastic over here.
Good. That's good to hear. I haven't had a vacation in a while, and although I take off some Fridays from contract work and whatever, well, and we're gonna get into that in a little bit. Um, I actually am going on vacation in a little bit. I can't say where yet, and I can't say when because I don't want anyone to like, jump me in like the house, get into the house when, we're gone or whatever. But because, we worked at a company that told us all these kind of security things. And so now I'm like super cautious about like,
Yeah,
when like planning it in advance and telling people. So regardless, when I get back from my vacation, then we'll talk about that. But we'll have a lot of episodes lined up for everyone so that they don't have to worry
of
about
course.
missing anything. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so do you want to introduce the first topic of today?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's a bit of personal at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, right? We created this ebook on like acing the interviews, tips, tricks, and whatnot. Received a lot of great feedback so far, and funny and not funny, all this was happening while you were also going through a series of interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've gone like I don't know how many interviews, and I wanted for you to share like your point of view on how tough it is right now for all the people that are going through, because there's a lot of people competing right now
Mm-hmm.
with like the jobs that are happening. So I wanted you to be able to give your perspective on this
Mm-hmm.
job hunt effort.
Yeah. So if I had to count total companies that I applied to, it would be a lot more than I would like to admit. And this is very unusual because when I was not saying unusual like I'm better than anyone else and I deserve a job more
Mhm.
than that, but like not no no that's not what I'm saying at all. When I was at IBM, I decided I wanted to leave, and I put on LinkedIn whatever, not like everyone can see it, but like just like headhunters can see it, and then I started to send myself out. And I got a lot of responses, like a ton of responses for the role that I wanted. You know, and I am surprised because when I was doing that, there were so many companies that really wanted me and they were fighting for me. They were trying to start giving me different offers, but ultimately, we ended up together again, and then we both got laid off. But it's interesting because now I'm almost 90% of the applications that I applied to, or I have applied to rather, I've been rejected. Like outright, like a day later, sorry, you're not a fit. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what? Like, you're not even gonna like ask me questions. You're not even gonna like say, hey, let's get to know each other before we can even make a decision. It's just flat out no. So I've been thinking a lot about our portfolio course and the interview guide that we have. And I think that's really great now that towards the end of my searching, I'm kind of like slowing down on it right now. That the guide is actually super helpful. So I'm really happy that you took all the ideas that we had together and then you added a ton more and then you produced that into a book that it can just be delivered to somebody. And I can't wait for other people who are actually starting to use it to help them get a job. For me, it's very difficult for a couple of reasons, and I'm trying to identify those things. So if those who are listening maybe can learn from what I'm trying to do and apply it to your situation to help you get a job, please by all means do. So I think one problem is my portfolio is a PDF. And that wasn't a problem. Now it seems like if you don't have a website, it's not easy for them to reach it. So they just flat out say no. That's one thing I'm thinking is wrong. The second thing
Mhm.
I think is wrong is that my portfolio has a lot of words in it and a lot less process work. And I think that a lot of companies, for better or worse, are looking for lower level designers and they want to see a lot of process stuff that they can mold to their thinking. So you and I are so far beyond like getting instructions from somebody and then just doing them. You and I like to get a problem or listen to like a need statement or like an ask, and then we like to figure it out on our own. That's what you and I are at the level of doing. We don't need to be told how to do a problem, how to solve a problem. You and I know how to solve problems. We have the tools to do it. So a lot of these companies that I've applied to, the role is actually many levels lower than the actual role. So I'm looking usually for a principal role, or like a role similar to a principal. Whether it's called principal or not, it is a principal role. And as a principal designer, I guess we can talk about a little bit about what that really means. I don't even know how to articulate that. To be honest, maybe that's probably one of the problems. But you're leading a lot of efforts. You're actually trying to shape the company through an individual contributor route. You're not a manager. You're not, you know, a PM, whatever. But I've noticed that a lot of them are asking for a principal, but are wanting an intern to push pixels. And so that might be another problem. People have a problem understanding what the role really is. So they see that I want to do so much ambitious stuff and they don't want somebody that's ambitious. They want someone that can follow directions. That's like the second thing. And then the third thing is I really don't think I'm very good at actually writing the applications. They always say cover letters, they're optional.
Mhm.
I'm starting to think that sometimes they might be more necessary than optional based on the company, like if it's like an older enterprise company versus like whatever. But I've been very shocked. Maybe because the salary I'm asking for is too high, right? That could be another thing, right? I was getting off my high horse from this last company that we got laid off from, and I had a really great salary, and a lot of companies can't even come close to that. And so currently, I've been contracting, and I think it's a great way to kind of get your feet wet back in the game, to try a lot of things at once and not feel like you're tied to any one thing, not married. You're kind of still like in the dating
Mhm.
mode of job hunting, job searching. But before I get into that, do you have any reactions to what I said before?
Yeah, I was gonna unpack that. You were saying that 90% of you
Yeah.
don't like the next day you get something.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what that trigger is.
Hmm.
I'm wondering if it's, you know, it's presented in or your portfolio or how you frame yourself, it's presented in a way that's too high for them,
Hmm.
or it's like, no, like I'm because in the space when you've worked with like X companies, you've done. the due diligence, you've done the work. I always wonder why, like, it doesn't even warrant a conversation.
Mhm.
I sometimes wonder if it's because they feel you're gonna come in and, like, at a too high level and you're gonna want to change the game too much, or they feel they can't
Okay.
mold you in a certain way. I have all these questions and I feel the same. When I had to go through job applications, it's the same way. Sometimes I was rejected and I'm like, why would I be rejected for this? Like I could literally do this.
Yeah.
So I wonder what's that trigger point of I don't have the answer, but I'm willing. What's your perception of what you've been going through?
There are 3 things. Number 1, like I said before, I think that they don't understand what their role is really supposed to be. They have somebody else, usually like a hiring, like a recruiter, write the roles, and they have such a disconnection between the actual people who are required or who are asking for team members and then the people who are actually going out and finding them. I think there's a big disconnect because I'll tell you one story. I was interviewing with a company from a friend of mine. He said, "Hey, my wife thought you'd be a good fit for this role. Here's the link." And it was a good role. It was the role. It was principal designer. It said senior designer in the like iCloud like
Yep.
iMessage link, but then when I opened it, it actually says principal. I'm like, oh, I didn't know this. This is why I didn't click it for so long. I clicked it, sent it. Within a day, I heard back, and I interviewed with them for a while. It was like several weeks of interviewing, and they loved me. They sounded like they liked me a lot. They turned me down for somebody else, but the recruiter, the first time I spoke to the recruiter, and this is what I already knew was not going to be a yes, like from the very beginning. But I still went through it just to see and get experience, in interviewing, whatever. And he said he gave really bad like predictions of like if the company is going to succeed or fail. Like he was pretty basically like, yeah, we have a contract with Google, and like that's our only like one of 2 contracts, and if that contract fails, then we're dead. And so we're kind of
Wow.
like in a sink, like what is it, like a sink or swim. And I was like, that's not reassuring to me that you're like on a good projection.
Yeah.
And they're in data and analytics too. So like he didn't paint a very good picture. He was like, yeah, the CEO said that like the market has to cool down. When I was like, what are you talking about? Like you're making it sound like this is not a company someone should work for. And you guys are all really stressed. The second thing was one of the designers, I guess the only designer I would work with, he was mentioning, oh yeah, if she was to happen to leave, like if she happened to leave, and I'm like, wait, so is she gonna leave and I'm taking on her work? And then the third thing he said was like, yeah, we don't need someone that's gonna like come in with big ideas. We need someone that's just gonna follow the directions and be heads down and like just produce a bunch of artboards. And I was like, um, I don't. No, I know how to do that. I've been doing that for 10 years. I don't need to continue doing that at this level. I'll help where I can, but there's more to it than
Mm.
that. So, no. And then another company, were going to pay me half of what I was making before. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, there's such a mismatch with what the role really is. And they try to woo you with equity and stuff. So those are kind of so I don't know what I was saying before this, but uh, I think that they don't have an understanding of what the role is. The second thing was um, I don't think I am positioning myself correctly. I think I need to do better actually presenting and positioning myself, saying I led more as opposed to I worked on this thing and I did this
Mhm.
project. One company, who another friend recommended me to, um, I got to the last interview. I did my portfolio thing, and by the way, some of these interviews I had to do I had to do a 7-hour project for free for one of the companies to interview. And I told them, no, I'm not doing it for 7 hours. You can break it up in a couple of days, but I'm not doing 7 hours. And they obliged to me, and they did it for 3 hours each day. So they were at least a little bit flexible there, but still, like, why am I dedicating so much time to that? I get it, I get why, but like,
Yeah.
whatever. And another company said they had 2 design managers on the last call, and one of them was not having a good day. And she kept saying, "Oh, I'm
Okay.
having a day. I'm having a day." And then she asked me a question. She said, what's a problem you had where you could not solve it? And I'm like, what? Like, you want me to ask, do you want to see how I deal with failure? Like, I don't know what you're trying to ask. I know a lot of problems I've solved. I don't know how to really position myself in a way that I fail. And then like how do I champion that at the end, right? So I couldn't figure out how to position myself in the moment, and so she stopped me and she goes, "You're rambling too much. Sometimes being succinct is a skill." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because then the next sentence that she said, she rambled on so long, she stopped herself and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm rambling and I'm having a day." And she kept saying that. "I'm having a day." So something was wrong on her end, and it must have irked her
Mm,
where she didn't want to even be talked. She barely even knew who I was. She thought I was still in Florida, still living in Florida. So I don't know what's going on. I think that there's a lot of bad hiring. I think there's a lot of positioning that I need to do it myself. And I think that there's a lot of miscommunication about what the actual role is that's making it very difficult for
yeah.
me to find something. So that's those three things. Do you have
It
any more questions on that?
and no, but it's interesting because one of the guests that's gonna come on, I'm not sure if it's the next episode or following, is a head of recruitment for like a crypto Web3 company. And I
Mm,
think it's gonna be interesting because she's gonna be able to help clarify her point of view from like the top of that funnel on like roles, your point of view, etc. So it's going to be interesting to get the other side of the conversation or other side of the opinions on
mm,
this specific topic because I don't think when you're necessarily badly positioning yourself, they
mm,
probably have an idea of what they want as a candidate. You're not just fitting it for some reason. I don't know.
mm.
I'm
Yeah.
not there. I've also noticed like a lot of the companies that have been reaching out to me lately are smaller teams and where you need to wear many hats. Where
Mm.
like they approach me and say, because like, yeah, I have a job, but I'm always listening because I think it's
It's
healthy
important.
to always listen to
Yeah.
conversation. And it is important to know and keep your name in the game. So, but they always say, are you okay with like being like an individual contributor and like rolling up your sleeve and doing pixel work here or marketing things there? I feel like a lot of the companies that are hiring right now are like not the startups, but still like more agile and small, where like a principal is not the same at that level or with that type of company at it as it would be with like an enterprise company or at Google or at
Mm,
Facebook. It's not the same because the big companies are established. So you're coming in and you're influencing your department or area. You need to have heavy influence on project managers, the directors. So you're coming in as an influencer basically because you don't have anybody reporting into you.
mhm.
You're responsible for the careers of the designers, but they're not reporting into you. Yet at smaller companies, you're like solo in a lot of stuff. So I wonder if that's playing that point of view or if it's affecting that perspective.
The other part I think is that a lot of them I'm applying to are startups. And because I don't want to spend time building something for somebody and not get a return that's worth it. I'm tired
Mhm.
of spending time on enterprise stuff. And so some of the companies that I applied to that I got denied from, I'm like, good, because I honestly, I couldn't stomach it again. I really don't think I can do enterprise again. I think that if I was to do it again, it would have to be a very special enterprise and a very special situation. And that I would have to be, in my opinion, I would have to be at the level of principal. I could not take anything less than that there. But when you're in a small team, small like startup, there's not really a principal role necessarily. Like it's like you're in principal of like two people, right? Like you're leading like two people, and
You're coming in that with experience and help grow the team and help decisions. But yeah, to your point, I feel smaller team, it's more you just have more experience than the others. You're not there's not that many things
yeah,
to influence.
I
You
mean,
can still be a principal from that perspective, but it's a different role. It's different
right?
atmosphere
It
altogether.
it doesn't it. I don't think the principal role actually makes sense as a small startup, right? Because usually it's like an organizational issue. That's why they hire principles because I need someone in a position of leadership from an individual
Yeah.
contributor perspective that can actually push the craft and push what it is. Whatever.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
at startups, they have to probably be a more mid-sized for a principal role. But the startups that I have been applying to,
Yeah.
I think that they're also afraid of touching me because I've only have big companies on my resume, startups that are big, but bigger companies than them. And so I think that they see those and they freak out and they go, oh, like this person isn't going to be good because they're more comfortable in those situations. They're not going to be good at wearing multiple hats, whether or not they know how many hats that you and I have to, how to wear at bigger and smaller companies. It's not like, we're like, I think there's a perception of enterprise that it's very icky. You have to wear ties and then they have like really big presentations in PowerPoint. But they don't realize that a lot of like at least when I was at IBM, it felt like a startup to me because I had to do research and UX and visual
Mhm.
and I had to lead the roadmap and I had to lead over 200 developers to figure out how to build the right thing for the right user. I had to do all of that. And so I don't think
Mhm.
that that is traditional enterprise. I think that's an enterprise that's dying, starving, and requires every bit of help it needs, it can get
Mhm.
and that's all hands on deck. So that's just like a startup. But I think that they have
Yeah.
a perception about that. So that's my spiel on why I don't think it's working. But the good news is that I am contracting for a startup that potentially I'll go full time with. So if that doesn't work out, then anyone listening who has a startup who needs some help, feel free to reach out, and Pascal and I can definitely help with that. But yeah, so that's kind of the shtick on
Cool.
that.
So we'll wrap up that topic. We'll hop on the other, but two things before.
Okay.
What is your biggest lesson that you've learned going through all this?
Mhm.
And what would be the biggest piece of advice based on that lesson that you've learned
Yeah.
to help others out?
Those are two really good questions. I'm going to answer with the same thing. Optimism. Having optimism and staying human. If you don't, the relationships around you will collapse. And so what I've been learning is I need to balance. And even though it feels in some days I feel like my world's collapsing. Like absolutely
Mhm.
everything's falling apart. Car issues, dog health, um, house problems, everything is happening at once that I never expected to happen at this point. There needs to be a balance with optimism and determination,
Mhm.
and also balancing the time you spend trying to find a job and deal with that and work stuff while also maintaining the relationships in your life. And so, my girlfriend listens to every single episode. I think it's adorable. And so she'll listen to these and she'll watch them, and she even plays it on the TV in the family room when she's doing work sometimes. So,
That's cool.
she'll be able to vouch for a lot of these things. When we talk about this a lot, but no, I do feel bad that sometimes I'm so busy working super late at night on this Framer stuff with you, and trying to do the editing of the podcast and doing all the stuff. Sometimes it is very frustrating because I'm taking
Mhm.
away time from being with her and our dogs and whatever. And I would rather spend time with people and go out and not worry about adding guac to this, as an extra. But I have to worry about that stuff. I have to worry about all this stuff at the same time. And as a man of the household, that's my responsibility. That is what men are supposed to be doing. In my opinion, you can disagree with me or not. I don't, come after me. But and maybe that's a controversy you want, but I think that there's a responsibility because a lot of men specifically derive a lot of our meaning and purpose from the work that we do.
Mhm.
And if that is in a poor position in life, it throws everything else off for
Mhm.
everything that is going on with that person. So,
Yep.
uh, for a man like myself, when I was doing so good, I moved into a house with my girlfriend, thinking everything was going to be good. I was going to exit with like $7 million, by the end of this year. That's basically how much it was worth when I started, and then when I ended, it was worth nothing. But I thought I had that positioned, and I wasn't worrying about that, and now I'm worrying
Yep.
about it. And so you have to find a way. So the biggest lesson I learned was that I need to take control of my situation and stop pitying myself and just be optimistic as much as possible. There's days that'll be harder than others. And, you and I talk all the time about it. So it's good to have a support system where you kind of have an understanding to where I am. And I have a couple of people in my life now that are able to help understand that. So I think that having that support system is very helpful, but like balancing the focus on trying to find a job and do contract and do all that work with the relationships is a really hard lesson to digest and also execute on. And so I think all of that is how I would respond to those two things.
It, it's great because I think you didn't come out with like a 5-step program. You kind of, it's about the human at the end of the day. And that human is, it's like, you could literally say things, but your answer is very human. And it is being optimistic, because you got to go through the yuck sometime to get out on like the positive side. And maybe the outcomes are going to be much greater than you can even anticipate. Maybe the thing that the framer thing and everything else, that's being built on the side, maybe we're just on the edge of like boom, exploding and providing as much value, right? We don't know. So that's why all this effort is being put in. But we value it, we see it, like we understand like goal where we want this to go. But we have to go through the motion to get there.
What I love about the framer stuff is that we can come in so strong and like we are the experts. We are the subject matter experts as soon as we hit the ground, and people listen. But it's not because we know more. It's because we are so good at contributing value to others through that effort. And so many people are trying to do it, but I don't think that they all do it very well. And we'll talk about it in a second, but I just want to end this topic of the job search stuff. Alex Hormozy, I think, has a somewhat similar story in terms of feeling to what I'm dealing with right now. But like, he basically opens up his book, which I downloaded and I'm listening to, and it's an amazing book. And maybe we'll have him on the pod soon. But he's talking a lot about like, he one day his partner took his money, like his business partner took his money, and he like had negative in his bank account, and he's like had to pay all these employees, and his wife is like, "What's wrong, honey?" And he's like, "We're like totally beyond screwed." And then he sold it. I think he sold his company like more recently for like $100 million. Right.
Wow.
So he went from like beyond broke to being like super well off. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. Like, I know you and I can do that. We're so close to getting to these things. And we keep talking about it. But I know, like, you and I are putting so much time into it. I'm trying to build up this framer thing, the CMS correctly, so that we can start publishing. But, and, you're handling a lot of the stuff in the guide, which is already doing some good stuff there. So I think that it's starting to take off. People are noticing. And for some reason today, I gained like 20 followers, like out of the blue, did nothing, absolutely nothing. And just boom. So I think it's starting to pick up online, and your Twitter following and stuff will start picking up too. So to wrap that up, there are so many success stories in when people hit rock bottom. And this might be like the second time I've hit what I would call rock. It's not even rock bottom. Like, I have money coming in. My girlfriend has money coming in. Like, we're fine, right? The first couple of days of the month, I've already made rent. So it's not a huge concern to me in that capacity. I know there's a lot more we can talk about that, but I think that there's the only way to get through this for me is to stay optimistic and to stay positive and be as ambitious and prolific as possible.
Yep.
That's it.
I think I think, honestly, I think we're close. You can start to smell, and it won't, I think we're so close. That's all I can say. I feel it.
Does it smell good or smell bad?
Seems to smell good from my side. I don't know about you.
Good. I hope so. Okay. So
way cool.
That was that topic. So we I've been doing this framer thing. People who are listening, like, what is this framer thing? We're trying to build guidance for the designers to understand how to actually implement components and patterns properly into a user interface and we're using Framer because a lot of designers and maybe no code developers and creators and entrepreneurs who want to build websites really quickly can use a tool like Framer that is similar to Figma. It's similar to
Yep.
Sketch. You can drag and drop, and it has really fantastic capabilities. But you and I are kind of on this adventure together, and I heard on a podcast, the My First Million podcast, that Sean went to China to meet with the CEO of Alibaba, but then met like a subordinate, his right hand man or something, and he was asking him like, "What's your plan to success?" or something. Just paraphrasing. Basically, the guy's like, "We have no plans for success. All we know is like how to plan to avoid failure." And so like they look for like the things that are failing, and then they avoid doing
Yes.
that. But they do everything as scrappy as possible, and that's how they scaled pretty quickly and pretty well. But they said
That's
something very
being like that methodology is also being taught in like MBA classes and things like that.
It's, like, so weird that it has to be taught. It's, like, literally just do it. Like, stop worrying, stop trying to prepare, and basically, they were saying, like, "We have no plan. We're just gonna do it." And so, I had this mentality in my head, and I saw this tweet at 6 in the morning of Blesson saying, "Hey, I'm selling this site that I made, everythingframer.com. It's got a couple
Yep.
hits to it, a lot of stuff on it, and I just wanna move on with my life and do something else." I'm like, "Oh, well, we're trying to build something similar to this." It has a lot of content on it. And I was thinking to myself, okay, he's offering it for this much money, for $1,000. I think that without really knowing the stats, I don't think it's worth necessarily $1,000. But I shot an offer to him, and he was like, "All right, well, you name your price because you will only offer." And I was like, "Oh wait, cool. Like I'm just gonna do it." And I had this mentality of like no plan, just action. I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
And so picked it up. We had a deal done within 60 seconds, and by 7 in the morning, I was sending him the money, which took like a week to do from the wire transfer or whatever. But I was like, this is gonna be great. I know this is gonna work. So all the stuff that we're working on for the Framer stuff, we're actually going to move it. For those who are listening, we're gonna move it and combine it with this everythingframer.com website,
Mhm.
and we're going to build a lot more onto it. So the first thing that I'm actually
Oh yeah.
compiling is, which I don't know if you really understand this. I don't know if I've really told you about it too much, but here we are building in public. I shot off to a bunch of other Framer creators, like people who are building Framer sites and teaching
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
I shot off a bunch of interview questions to them, and I said, "Hey, fill out this Google form. We're gonna showcase you on the new website." And so it has like an educator section, which is
Yep.
just a list of people that are building cool stuff you can follow on Twitter and stuff. I'm making that into like almost like an interview, like magazine,
Yep.
and I think that that's a really cool thing that no one's done before. And so I hope to have that done as soon as I finish another website, uh, so that we can like just start posting stuff there, get the word out, have a couple of interviews up there, but also highlight people who are doing really great stuff because I think that they do deserve to have a little spotlight on them and get some follower counts and whatever. But it'll draw a lot of attention to the site and get more eyes and clicks on the site, which means we can potentially give more value away and get, in return, hopefully people buy some of the stuff that we put up on the site, such as templates, the guides, and other tutorials. So I think it's a really great strategy.
I think it is, and I think it's always like I said, it's like designers helping designers out.
Hmm.
And I think that's at the end of the day, that's the goal. We want to create something that's going to be of value, but also allow other designers to come on and shine. Like the
Hmm.
part you were mentioning, like the interviews. It's all
Yeah.
so helping them shine and grow and share knowledge because that's what the community is all about.
And what's so interesting is that so many of those framer folks are so new to design, like designing at least in public, but design in general. And
I know.
some of them are not even like 10% of the experience. I'm not saying this to brag again. I don't like bragging about it, but you and I have so much experience that we are trying so desperately to share with everyone else to get them up to our level that we have this advantage where we can come in and say, okay, we're design system experts. We've helped some of the biggest design systems in the world grow, and we've created some other ones here and there. And so we have so much knowledge that we want to share, and it's going to be able to trickle through a lot of the stuff that other sites that are competing with us cannot catch up to, because you're just insane at writing. And I think that when I get emotionally motivated, I'm a machine. I just pop things out left and right. So with these two skill sets, I think that when we combine them and focus them on this, it's going to just like supercharge it. So I'm really excited for how we're going to approach that. And it's not like a secret. Like, we're not trying to do this super in secret. We're just trying to do it and like have a
Mm,
nice like show and tell once we release it. But that'll come soon. So we'll start off with like the educators part, and then we'll move on and go back to the other stuff. So I'm trying to build the navigation, and then start to build the CMS that kind of controls all this for you and I. And then once that's kind of done, then we can start posting all those different things. So we'll, you write the guidance for a button. We'll put it in, get the images and the GIFs and the videos, and then we can link
yep.
them to a remix file. They can download it, and then bada bing, bada boom. We have people accessing all of our free resources. And this is just free. Most of it's going to be for free. We'll have some for paid, but most of it's free. So,
And I think like there's going to be templates on there too, right? I think we
yeah.
want to help people move fast with pre-built websites and so on, not to help just other designers out, but people that
Hmm.
want to are a smaller company. They might not have access to huge developer teams or whatnot. They could just grab the template, modify it to their liking, and boom, they're off.
Yeah.
I think the goal is to help as much as we can. Like you said, we'll have free and paid content on there. We'll start by just launching, obviously, but I think there's a lot of ideas and big ideas that are planned with all that.
Yeah. And maybe there's some courses that we actually put up for non-designers of how to use Framer so that they can build websites for their
Yes.
companies. Because, like, a dentist might need a website. Whatever the different niches might be. And I know we talked even briefly about
Yes.
then having maybe like a section of sites like, hey, do you need a custom website built? We can do that. Or hey, do you need help
Yep.
learning Framer? Book a session. We'll do that too. So there's things that you can just sprout from here, and I'm really excited to get this off the ground because I think that that's the route we're going to take for at least for a while, and I think that it coincides so well with all the newsletter stuff and all this podcast. So
Yep.
looking forward to that. And also next week we interview CEO. He calls himself the CEO, not CEO, CEO of Framer. So CEO of
Very
Framer
cool.
will coming on soon. We'll ask him a lot of questions. So those who are listening, shoot us a message and ask and tell us, what you want to hear from Framer. If you have any questions for the CEO of Framer, please let us know on Twitter at Mitch Bernstein or loves_pixels.
Yeah, we have some pretty cool guests, I would say, coming on
Yeah.
in the next couple of episodes. And
Hell
so
yeah.
some big to medium size to smaller size, but very interesting, I would say, people coming on. And I think it's going to be interesting for the next couple of pods.
So the next topic is, I see there's two more topics, Kindle and then making stuff and seeing what sticks. Which you want to talk about next?
I think they kind of intertwine
Okay.
in a way. And we can talk about this and then
Okay.
and then just transition. But we created this ebook because we want to help. Like a
Mhm.
lot of people like yourself are going through the motion.
For,
We've
for for those who are listening who don't know
discussed,
what it is, can you describe what the ebook is?
yeah, it's an ebook, like a 70-page ebook that talks about, winning the interview game, bunch of tips, tricks. There's interview techniques, how to answer, how's the best way to answer a behavioral question, how to go about with like the design exercise that some interviews make you do, I should say, how to best approach that, how to present your portfolio, follow up the interview questions or like afterwards, how do you follow up? There's a bunch of guys on there. Like I said, is like a lot of this came from conversations with people like top of header hunter companies, myself that's interviewed a lot, or yourself, other HR and individual managers. So a lot of this info all combined into one. And that's the thing that we wanted to create. We wanted to help people out. And, we started off offering for free. Maybe it was a bad idea, but anyways, we
Mhm.
still did it because we're building in public, like you said.
Mhm.
Now we have this idea that we're going to submit it to Kindle and we're going to turn it into a Kindle book. And I think this is just another way to spread the wings and share, get the knowledge shared as
Mhm.
much as possible. Because to your point, you were talking about earlier, there's a lot of the people coming up and being well known for like building framer sites and whatnot that are starting off in their career. They're fantastic at what they've done with the framer designs, but they may not have all that experience or knowledge that came from all the years of experience in dealing with a lot of different stuff. So how can we transmit that info back onto designers to help them level up their game? I know that like a lot of the industry is turning to like solopreneurs and whatnot. That's fantastic. There's still methodologies and areas that still apply, like how to deal with contracts, how to deal with project management. So all this knowledge is how we want to transmit and build in public and help share and spread the love. So that's part of this initiatives of turning this into a Kindle book as well. And as part of the other thing where you mentioned is we have so many ideas. We thought we narrowed down our niche when we did. It's like when Matt Gray said, it's like the ikigai, and then you do like you narrow down your
Mhm.
niche, only speak to your niche. We thought we had it, but building in public is not, you realize sometimes that that niche maybe needs to pivot. And the first couple of months, you need to be able to adjust and react. And I think that's what we're doing. A lot of people, like I anticipated a lot of stuff to move much faster. I
Mhm.
hit a wall. Obviously, I hit that wall very fast.
Yeah.
But everybody I've been talking to and like other big names, they all say it takes a while, like
Yeah.
6 months to a year to build a community, to have people respect you, to have people value what you have to say. And through that, you often repivot that niche. So I think that's what we did. We repivoted that niche. And now we're starting to get a better sense of like that niche and who we want to target, how we want to help them, what do we want to do to get there. So we're learning as much as we're
Mhm.
doing this, we're learning as we're going, but we're also taking in and bringing in our own experience through all this and bringing our own tone of voice, our own way of, writing and messaging and whatnot. So we're trying to be unique and being our own selves. So it's a game. It's
Mhm.
like it's not a race. It's literally like a journey. So we're trying to do the journey as much as we can and enjoy it.
Yeah, and there's like this idea that people keep saying is like, what you mentioned before about like narrowing down to your niche. And I think the way to do that is by starting out really wide and funneling down to that specific thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like you're gonna know what it is and then you're just gonna go like we're producing a bunch of stuff, seeing what people react to, and then focusing more on the things that they react to. So we're talking originally about like portfolios and like just that, like I don't like nothing else. And then it seemed like people needed help with the website stuff. And then we saw Framer starting to take off, and we jumped on that a little
Yep.
bit, and that seems to be a really good train to jump on right now. But I'm sure in like a year from now that'll be dead, or not dead as the tool, but like there'll be a new hot thing. What are they calling it? Like hot boy startups. And yeah, that's like the
So
term that someone told me. I was like, oh yeah, I applied to this company. They go, oh, you mean that hot boy startup? And I'm like, does that make me a hot boy? All right, I'll take it. But
well, you got your jacket on. You got your jacket on. Now it's like you're part of the band.
someone called me the devil last night. We went out with my girlfriend and my mom to get drinks and food and stuff. And my mom went to the bathroom. I was standing with my girlfriend. She's wearing like a lot of light colored clothing. So like almost like this, but lighter, but just like head to toe. And I'm wearing like this, but dark, like a black version of this with my
Yeah.
jacket. And this guy came up to me. He's like, hey, nice look you guys got going on, like the angel and the devil. And I'm looking at him like, what? And he's like, yeah, you even got the Jewish star and everything. I'm like, what? Did you just like cross those two things together? All right. And then I think he was trying to hit my girlfriend, but she was just like, "What are you talking about, dude?" And he like just walked away. But yeah, I think back to the subject, we'll eventually narrow down and then we'll scale up. So I think it's like
Yeah.
we narrow it down and then the inverse happens was like, all right, now you need to scale. Once you narrow down and hit that thing, that pot of gold, then it opens up and then you need to expand on your offers. So then it kind of funnels back open. And I think it kind of like opens and closes and what is it, converges and diverges. And I think that we're now going towards a convergence by doing all these things, the guides. And I know you said you had a couple other guides that you were writing. And so those are going to be awesome. I already know it. And then we'll just be able to have a bunch of these guides plus a lot of these templates plus all these other things in one spot.
Yep.
And then, we already have so many other things in the future we want to do. This is just the first phase. So I'm really excited for how that's going to turn out. But right now, we're seeing what sticks, and then we're riding that train. And so one thing I'm trying to do is build like a little, like, for myself doing contract work. I have to like just do it through my own LLC or whatever.
Yep.
And so I'm building a website so that I can then submit it to Stripe, Atlas, and then get approved more quickly. But when we do like open up the official company for our stuff after we settle some of the other stuff together, then we can even do something like Design Joy, and then have like an agency that's based on a subscription, and then work our way up to $1.5 million a year, which I think that you and I can even double, knowing us. But that's for a whole different discussion, and I don't even want to think about that right now, just because there's so much going on. I don't think we should do too much. I think there's a limitation to how much you can actually produce and then get value out of and give back. But I think what we're doing is we have enough stuff being put out into the world, and once some of this stuff starts to pick up, then we'll pay attention, see the patterns, and then jump on those trains.
Yeah, I think it's like the jack of all trades, almost like jack of all trades, value of one or whatever. I can't remember what that quote is.
It's jack
but I
of
think
all
it's like
trades,
everybody.
master of none.
Yeah, that one. I think it's important to be focused, and the more you're focused, the better you produce, the better you execute. And I think that's what, like, originally the lens was wide, and I think it's a lesson learned in a way, but it's also a way that we understood what part we need to focus on right away, because we knew right away what sticks a bit more. So even though we may not wanted to go there right away, we wanted to do something else originally, we currently see that the market needs value here. So we adjusted, pivoted. Now we're kind of zoning in and focusing in on this, because if we spread too thin, like, we're not focused, we're not going to gain any traction on it. So we really need to focus in, get better at that thing, really be seen as, community experts, bring value to this specific area and help others out, sharing what we've learned. And I think that's the part that we need to, one, obviously get better at. We're learning at that, but I think with everything that we're planning, once like a lot of the things launches, this is like, it's going to help a lot of people.
I think that we'll launch, just a heads up, we'll launch the CEO of Framer episode with the launch of the Framer stuff. So it coincides really well, and it kind of launches together in a pattern. Sorry, in like a batch or whatever. And then we'll also probably have some newsletters that describe a lot more of what's going on in detail in writing. But yeah, I think that's good. I think we did a really good episode just now. I'm really glad that we talked about all the stuff, because I think it'll help some people who are also struggling with job searching, who are also building in public and want, some optimism. Because like you and I, we've been on this for a couple of months now, and we thought it would take off immediately, and it didn't, and that's okay, because that's part of the process. It's like a slow, like gradual thing, and then eventually it'll hockey stick. And maybe it doesn't hockey stick. Maybe it takes time to go up, but
I think it's important to be transparent and human. Just like I shared a couple of tweets on, like, the struggle is real. Like, trying to build a community with the family, full-time job, kids, activities. I mean, it's not easy. Like, people say spend 1 hour. Yeah, but even sometimes that 1 hour I don't have. Sometimes I'll stay up late and spend 7 hours that I didn't really have, but I do because I want to do this and I see value in what we're doing. But being transparent with this, I think, is important. And we're just humans being humans behind that.
Yeah, cool. And with that, I think we'll end this episode. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. And if you are on YouTube, you can subscribe and give us, I think there's no stars on YouTube. So just like us on YouTube. Or if you're on Spotify, give us 5 stars, please, please, please. Remember the gentleman's agreement. You have to like and subscribe, or 5-star wherever you are, in order to listen to this content, because this content is not free. If you don't do that, then we won't be able to keep doing this for free for you. It's kind of the way that you pay us. It's very simple. Just like, subscribe, 5-star, whatever. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.